Picture this, you're exhausted from back-to-back meetings, your brain feels foggy and stress is consuming you. Now imagine walking into a space with tall trees and natural light for just 10 minutes and feeling your entire nervous system reset. This isn't wishful thinking, it's science. I discovered that specific characteristics of green space matter more than just being outside. And when I started applying this knowledge strategically, I went from dreading my workday to actually feeling energized and resilient. I want to tell you about the day I literally couldn't get out of bed because work stress had completely broken me down. It was a Tuesday morning in March, and I remember staring at my phone as the alarm went off for the third time. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My chest was tight, my hands were shaking, and the thought of checking my email made me want to throw up. This was the peak of my worst professional period. For months, I had been surviving on maybe 4 hours of sleep each night. I would lie in bed with my mind racing through endless to-do lists and worst-case scenarios. During the day, I had anxiety attacks that came out of nowhere. My heart would pound so hard I thought people could hear it in meetings. I felt like I was drowning in deadlines and pressure, gasping for air, but never quite getting enough. I tried everything the internet told me to try. I downloaded meditation apps. But sitting still for 10 minutes felt impossible when my brain was screaming about unfinished projects. I forced myself to go to the gym, but working out became another item on my stress list instead of relief. I even took a long weekend vacation, but I spent the whole time checking work emails and feeling guilty about being away. That Tuesday morning, my brain literally stopped working properly. I couldn't remember simple passwords or where I put my keys. I would start sentences and forget what I was trying to say halfway through. My decision-making ability disappeared completely. I stood in my kitchen for 15 minutes trying to decide what to eat for breakfast. When chronic stress floods your system with cortisol for months, it actually shrinks the parts of your brain responsible for focus and clear thinking. That's exactly what was happening to me. I searched desperately for solutions that went beyond the usual advice. Most suggestions felt generic and unhelpful. Take deep breaths, get more sleep, exercise more. None of that addressed what I was actually experiencing. Then I had a moment of clarity that changed everything. Maybe the answer wasn't about doing more activities to manage stress. Maybe I needed to completely change my environment. What I discovered next wasn't just about going outside. It was about understanding how different types of natural spaces affect your stress response in completely different ways. The tree canopy discovery. What if I told you that standing under a maple tree affects your stress levels completely differently than sitting in an open park? I know it sounds weird, but this discovery changed everything for me. After that rock bottom moment, I decided to test different types of outdoor spaces. I started carrying a small notebook and rating my stress level before and after spending time in various green spaces around my city. My first experiment was at the local park near my office. I thought any green space would help, so I sat on a bench in the middle of the open grass area for 20 minutes during my lunch break. But something strange happened. My stress actually got worse. The wide open field made me feel exposed and restless. My mind kept wandering to work problems instead of calming down. Busy parks with lots of people walking by made me even more anxious. I felt like I was being watched or judged for just sitting there. I started keeping a detailed stress journal. I tracked what actually worked versus what I thought should work. The results surprised me completely. Open spaces, even beautiful ones, often left me feeling more scattered than before. But when I found a walking path lined with tall oak trees, something shifted immediately. Under that canopy of branches, my shoulders dropped. My breathing slowed down naturally. Scientists have studied this exact phenomenon. Tree canopy coverage reduces cortisol levels more effectively than low vegetation or grass areas. Your brain responds differently to tall trees because they create an enclosed feeling that triggers a sense of safety. The filtered light coming through leaves activates specific neural pathways. The sounds are different too. Wind through branches creates white noise that blocks out urban stress. I completely changed how I planned my walking routes. Instead of choosing paths based on distance or convenience, I mapped out routes with maximum tree coverage. I started eating lunch under the big elm tree behind my building instead of in the cafeteria. I moved my weekend coffee walks to the tree-lined streets in the older part of town. This knowledge transformed my daily routine entirely. I began choosing apartments and workspace locations based on access to mature trees. But then I discovered something even more powerful happens when you add water to this equation. The first time I sat by a lake during my lunch break, something happened to my brain that I couldn't explain. It was different from my walks in the trees. I had discovered how powerful tree canopies were for stress relief, but I was curious about water environments. There was a small lake about 10 minutes from my office, and I decided to test it out. Within 5 minutes of sitting on the bench facing the water, my mind went completely quiet in a way that trees had never achieved. I became obsessed with understanding this difference. I started incorporating blue spaces into my stress management routine and tracking my responses. But here's where it got confusing. Some water environments felt incredibly calming, while others felt neutral or even stressful. The busy fountain in the city centre with people rushing by made me more anxious. The chlorinated pool at my gym felt sterile and unhelpful. I started experimenting with different blue spaces systematically. Rivers with gentle flowing sounds worked differently from still ponds. Even small fountains in quiet courtyards had unique effects. I tracked these different mental responses in my stress journal. The patterns that emerged fascinated me. Research shows that blue spaces activate completely different neural pathways than green spaces. Water environments affect your brain's default mode network, which is the part that's active when your mind wanders and creates stress stories. Moving water sounds mask urban noise stress by providing consistent background audio that your brain can tune out. Still water gives you a visual focus point that naturally calms your nervous system through something called soft fascination. I started scheduling phone meetings while walking along the river path instead of sitting in my office. I chose lunch spots strategically based on water views. I moved my Saturday morning coffee routine to the cafe that overlooked the pond instead of the busy street location. These small changes created massive shifts in my daily stress levels. But then I noticed something unexpected about seasonal changes. My nature routine that worked perfectly in summer started failing in winter, and it wasn't just about the temperature. The same lake that reset my brain in July felt completely different in December. This discovery led me to understand that timing and seasons play a crucial role in maximising these stress relief benefits. I discovered that my nature breaks in December felt completely different from the same spots in July, and it wasn't just about temperature. My usual lake spot that resets my brain in summer suddenly felt lifeless and grey. The tree-lined path that worked magic in spring left me feeling more drained in winter. I realised my nature routine needed to adapt with seasons, and daylight exposure was the missing piece I never considered. The winter slump hit me hard. My usual nature spots seemed to lose their stress-busting power completely. I would walk the same paths that helped me in warmer months and come back feeling worse than when I started. I almost gave up on the whole approach. I thought maybe I had imagined the benefits or convinced myself nature worked when it really didn't. That's when I started researching circadian rhythms and discovered something amazing. Daylight timing affects your stress response systems in ways I never understood. Your body's cortisol patterns change dramatically based on when you get light exposure. Seasonal light exposure changes how your brain responds to natural environments. This explained why my winter nature walks felt so different. Morning light exposure in natural settings creates a completely different stress resilience than evening nature time. When you get bright light early in the day, especially outdoors, it sets your circadian clock properly. This helps your stress response system function more effectively throughout the day. Evening light exposure has calming effects, but works through different pathways. I developed specific strategies for maximising daylight benefits year-round. In winter, I moved my nature breaks to mid-morning when the sun was strongest. I found south-facing spots that got maximum light exposure. I started taking my coffee outside on sunny winter days, even for just 10 minutes. I adjusted my weekend nature time to match the shorter daylight hours. This knowledge transformed my approach completely. Instead of random nature breaks whenever I felt stressed, I planned strategic exposure based on seasons and light conditions. I tracked my energy levels and stress responses to different timing combinations. Seasonal changes and daylight affect the stress-reducing power of nature exposure through the optimization of circadian rhythms and the effects of light therapy. Your brain processes natural environments differently depending on when and how much light you're getting. Understanding this timing creates a complete system rather than just hoping nature will help. Nature isn't just a nice-to-have break from stress. It's a strategic tool that works differently for different people in different seasons. What I want you to do now is start your own experiment. Track what specific environments and timing work best for your stress levels. Try tree-covered paths versus open spaces. Test morning light exposure versus evening nature time. Notice how water affects you differently from greenery. You now have the knowledge to create your own personalised, nature-based stress management system. Start with just 120 minutes per week and pay attention to what your body tells you about different natural environments.